All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another live Q&A with Corey. We should be live in on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We left Instagram out because Instagram, I don't know, it was a pain last time. So, Corey, what's going on, man? I think you're currently traveling. Is that correct?
I am, yeah. So I'm just down here in Miami for the day. I guess I'll be here like less than 36 hours total. We're just down here to shoot some content, hang out for the night, and that's pretty much it. So looking forward to chopping it up
Nice.
with some wholesale knowledge and tactics and whatnot on this Friday night.
Absolutely. So we've already got some questions that have actually come in from people before the live even started. But if you guys have questions, bring them, drop them in the chat. I'll make sure to get to them. We've got about 35, 40 minutes. I know Corey has got a dinner reservation he's got to make. So we're going to get him out of here as quickly as possible. So the first question that came in, which I thought was pretty interesting, was if a distributor has a retail site with many brands that they sell to the public, but they also have a wholesale program, can they be good distributors to work with? And I could give a real life example of this. It would be Empire, or sorry, EE Distribution. I
Yep.
think their retail arm is Empire or something like that. But can you work with those kind of folks as distributors?
Yeah, so you definitely can. And I know in the past, one of the criteria that I've given for distributors is they've got to be 100% B2B. So, as with any rule, right, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. General rule of thumb is if they have a retail arm, then they're probably going to be pricier than someone that is strictly B2B, right? Now, with that being said, there is a chance, right, that they can still be profitable if you're purchasing from them at wholesale. So I wouldn't write them off completely, but I would keep that in mind. And more than likely, you're going to have more success with someone that's 100% B2B.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Now, let me ask you a kind of a follow-up question to this. So,
Mm-hmm.
my uncle worked for like a distributor in back in Columbus back when I was a kid. It was an electrical supply company. Now, they would allow people to come in and buy from kind of their retail showroom, which was very small,
Mm-hmm.
but most of their business was to electricians, both like ones that would come to your house and handymen, but also like large businesses. I'm trying to like contractors for power companies, stuff like that. Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever come across one of those, and how well that might work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There's a company that we bought through, right? They're a brick and mortar lighting showroom. So they carry lighting products, they carry ceiling fans, that type of stuff. And this is someone that I just know through a connection in my network. And now we've got an arrangement with them where they've got a retail showroom, right? They're primarily a retail business, but they're willing to place wholesale orders with the manufacturers that they work with because they've been working with some of these manufacturers for, I mean, the company's been around for decades, right? So they've got really strong relationships with some brands in this niche where they're willing to place wholesale orders for us. So it's kind of like it kind of is how it's almost on like a case by case basis, right? There's ways to make it work, but it's not going to work every time.
Yeah, perfect. So Zachary has a question here. It says, when you have solid suppliers, what's the best way or the most efficient way to get some more buying power? Uh, Zachary says he's got about 30K in cash, but he wants to be able to scale a little bit faster. And so, what kind of advice would you give him?
So Zachary, you got a couple of options. So one would be, and like, listen, I'm not going to tell you like, oh, just open some credit cards, put everything on credit cards, right? Not a very financially savvy play. What I would do instead is I would look for a local or regional bank or credit union and look to open a line of credit with that bank or credit union, right? If you've got a relationship with a specific local bank, that's going to be your best bet. But oftentimes you can get a line of credit with these banks with good terms, and it's kind of like you pull from it as you need and you pay it back as needed as well. Another option, Zachary, that you could take, and this is something that I've started to do as well, because I mean, I don't have unlimited capital either, but I have access to a lot of these really profitable products. What I've started doing is just distributing some of those products to other sellers, right? So, for example, I've got a private community, I've got sellers in that community that have capital. And when I come across a lead that I can't necessarily afford to buy, I might mark it up, say 5%, right? Because you don't really need to be making a killing on these products. The key is to keep generating more capital. So say you find a good product from your supplier, you can, let's say, offer it to a friend at a 5% markup. And as long as it's still a good deal for them, you collect the cash from your friend, you pay the vendor, and then you pocket that 5%, right? So if you do enough deals like that on top of the sales that you're making on Amazon, that could be almost an entirely separate revenue stream, right? And now that's a bit of an advanced tactic, but I mean, you said you've got 30K to play with, so more than likely you're not brand new, and that could just be an avenue to consider.
Yeah, I know one of the other things I might suggest is this is not going to be the most it's not going to be the most fun process, but if you've got some history of selling on Amazon, you might be able to go and get an SBA loan or line of credit as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, not a fun process to go through, but another avenue. So, and guys, as you guys are coming in here, if you have questions, let us know in the comments. I'll make sure to get those asked. Uh, I've got a couple of questions. One is, do you have any examples of some, I don't know, kind of out of the box ways or unusual ways that you've happened to come across suppliers in the past?
So that's a good question. And I would say, okay, so yeah, I have a method to share with you. And I've actually made a YouTube video on this before. This is actually one of the easiest ways to like just be out in the wild, right? And stumble upon really good potential distributors. So I want you guys, if you're at home right now, which probably many of you are, go into your pantry and grab any old product from your pantry, right? Now, a lot of products, a lot of brands on their packaging will list their distributors. So if you look kind of closely on some of the fine print on the packaging, it might say distributed by XYZ company, right? So a lot of times you find the distributors for these brands literally on the packaging. So I've done that before where I found, I think it was a spray canola oil bottle. And on the packaging, it said distributed by XYZ company. I Googled that company. Come to find out, that distributor carries the brand that I had there in my hand, but they also carried like 100 other food brands. And so you can reach out to that brand and source that product that you had in your hand. Also, an additional 99 potential brands. So that's a really easy, really low hanging fruit way to find authorized distributors for brands that, I mean, you literally just have to walk into the store and start looking at packaging.
Yeah. So I reached over on my desk here, and every morning I take a little bit of vitamin D3. Now, this is not a good example, but this is nature made. And right on the back of it, it says distributed by Nature Made Nutritional Product. I've got a city. I don't have a street address. I've got a URL, naturemade.com, but then I've got an 800 number. And I'm guessing that I could call this 800 number during business hours and be like, hey, what do I need to do to open a wholesale account? If they're like, well, we don't really do that, I could probably just say, hey, would you point me in the direction of some of your distributors? And I would bet money
Yep.
that they would give it to me. Yeah. I've done it with Hasbro. I'm sure Nature Made would do the same thing.
Yep. Guaranteed.
All right. So Russ has a question. And Russ, I appreciate this question because this allows us to talk a little bit about the wholesale challenge. But Russ is curious, can you go over all the areas that you're going to be covering in the wholesale challenge?
Yeah, Russ, so great question. And so for those of you that are watching this that aren't familiar with the challenge, so quick rundown on what that is. So the wholesale challenge is our live 7-day training on how to start, scale, and manage a fully remote wholesale business, right? So it's starting on January 22nd and it's running through the 29th. And now, Russ, each day is going to be focused on one of the core pillars of Amazon wholesale, right? So an example of that would be day two is focused on finding suppliers, right? So the entire day two session is focused on finding suppliers. And I'm not just going to say like, hey, this is what you should do to find suppliers. I will tell you that, but then I turn around, share my screen, and we find suppliers, right? It's not theory, it's giving you the information and then we put it into practice. We've got, for example, a whole entire day dedicated to contacting suppliers, right? What to say to land accounts, how to position yourself, a day dedicated to shipping and logistics. So it's really the entire Amazon wholesale business building process, A to Z. and it takes place live over that 7-day period. So guys, if you're interested in the challenge, I think we've got the URL going here at the bottom. We got a QR code above me here to the right. You can scan and you can hit that website and it'll give you all the information you need. And then one more point that I want to add about the challenge. Some of you might be thinking, well, maybe I'm out of town that week, or maybe I won't be able to join the live sessions. If you join us, or if you sign up for the challenge, you will get lifetime access to the recordings of every session, right? So don't worry about joining us live if you're not able to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then a follow-up to that. Oh, so actually, that's another question. So Russ is also curious, how many hours a day on average do you spend on your wholesale business?
So good question. So Russ, keep in mind, so actually, I think it was 3 days ago, marked my 5-year anniversary of doing wholesale, right? So I've been doing this for half a decade at this point. At this point, I have a team of virtual employees that handles 90% of the day to day. So, I mean, no exaggeration, on an average day, I'm personally spending anywhere from 1 to 2 hours on my wholesale business, right? Not very much time at all. But like I said, it took 5 years to get there. And in fact, one of the days of the wholesale challenge is focused on leveraging virtual talent to scale. So we're going to be going into the deep end on, okay, once you've got the foundation of your business in place, how do you hire really good virtual employees from overseas at these low dollar amount rates compared to what you could find them here in the US to handle a lot of that heavy lifting for you?
Perfect. And then Russ has another follow-up question, and it's what tasks are you normally doing on a daily basis in your business?
So I like to focus on tasks that move the needle, right? So in a wholesale business, that really comes down to training my team, right? Making sure that they're on point, that they have everything that they need to execute on the what needs to be done in the business, right? And then purchasing products. So I have my team set up to where they are essentially going through all of our products that are selling well, and they're essentially drafting that purchase order, and they're putting that purchase order in front of me. So all I have to say is yes, no, or change the quantity, right? Because as anybody who does wholesale knows, you make your money when you buy. Therefore, buying is the highest leverage task in your business. So I'm essentially having them tee up purchase orders for me so that I can place the orders. And I don't even place the orders, right? I just tell them what to buy, and then they go place the order. And then I'd say the third and also very important task that I focus on is high level relationship building, right? So there's some vendors that we've been buying from for some for 2 years, some for 3 years. Our best vendor, I think we've been working with for like 4 years at this point. So it's getting on the phone with them and just keeping relations, keeping rapport high, right? Checking in, asking how they're doing, and seeing how we can increase our level of business with them.
Nice. And let's see here. All right. So Thomas asked, will the course be recorded? Corey answered that already. It will absolutely be recorded. So the way that we do this time around, it may change platforms the next time, just because, we found out about a new platform that's kind of cool. But right now it's going to be all in a Facebook group, and everything's recorded. All the videos are live within, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes after Corey's live is finished. You can hop in, hop out, and then you have access to the replays at all times. And Nova asks, do you offer a course? That's actually what we're chatting about. We're talking about the wholesale challenge. That is the wholesale course that we're chatting about here a little bit. So Zachary has another really good question here. And I'm going to preface this by saying that he's currently using Excel, but it's become very laborious for him. And so he's curious, how do you manage your inventory data, like your expected profit and loss on outstanding orders, your P&L on current ASINs, and any other important info that you might need to manage your portfolio of SKUs?
Yeah, so this is a multi-parted question. I'll try to answer it in each part. So when it comes to our expected profit and loss on outstanding orders, so let's say we place an order with a supplier and the supplier has the order, they're processing it, but they haven't shipped it yet, right? So we have built essentially an in-house purchase order management tool all on top of Google Sheets that we use to manage that information, right? So at any given time, I can go into, we call it our operation sheet, and I can filter all of my purchase orders to show me, hey, what have I paid for but hasn't been shipped yet, right? Or what orders have I placed but I haven't yet paid for them yet, right? So I can basically filter by any different order status, for example, and see the status of those products. And then we've got our profit, our expected profit, the subtotal of the order, all of that financial information stored there in that sheet, right? So that's how we look at potential profit on outstanding orders. Now, when it comes to, so you asked about a P&L on our current ASINs. So we get a profit and loss statement every month from our bookkeeper. That's our official legitimate profit and loss, but it's not broken down by product, right? So if I want to know at the product level, how profitable am I, or how much am I spending on shipping, for example, we use a tool called Seller Board. And now Seller Board will give us our gross profit it'll show us by day, by week, by month. We can filter by any sort of date range that we want. And it will also give us our metrics at the ASIN level, right? So I can see, right now I can log into my Seller Board and see at any given point in time, how profitable is a specific product for me today, this week, this month. So it gives me that Seller Board gives you that super granular data that I look at. That's what I look at like the most on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. Um, let's see here. Oh, this is nice. Not a question, but thanks to both of you guys for putting out awesome training. Really love all the content you put out. So it says Facebook user. I apologize that I can't call you out by name, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think we both work pretty hard at putting out an inordinate amount of content compared to a lot of other folks. Um, so Corey, I want you to kind of maybe break a myth that is out there, or maybe just break a bad habit that I think a lot of Amazon sellers have. A lot of folks get started in the arbitrage space, whether it's retail arbitrage, it's online arbitrage, and our very first kind of gut instinct is, how do I get the deepest discount possible? And so when you move to wholesale, of course, the first question out of a lot of Amazon sellers' mouths is going to be, well, how can I go and how do I get a discount? Or what discount can you give me? And from what I've seen you say, that's a completely wrong approach right up front. So my question is one, how do you broach the topic of discounts from your suppliers? And if broaching that topic up front is the wrong way to go, what is the right way to go about it?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I feel like we haven't talked about like asking for discounts much recently. And side note, we're going to cover this in detail on, I think it's day 3 of the challenge, where we talk about contacting suppliers. So we're going to talk about how to position yourselves for discounts very in detail on that day. But here's a gem for you guys. So let's say you open a new supplier account, right? You're sourcing their catalog, you're looking at some products, and let's say you find some products that you want to buy, but maybe they're borderline in terms of profitability, right? So maybe you wouldn't place the order, but you might need a, let's say, 5% discount, 10% discount to make it work. So this is what you do. You draft up 2 purchase orders, right? Purchase order 1 is for the total is small, right? It's not a very big order because it's not going to be super profitable for you. And like I said, it's going to be a smaller total order. Now, purchase order 2 is going to be for the same products, but with a theoretical, let's say 5%, or maybe even up to a 10% discount applied, right? And now purchase order 2 is much bigger because we know that if we can get better pricing, the better pricing we can get, the more we're willing to buy. So what you do is you got purchase order 1, you got purchase order 2. What I like to do, this is the most effective way to execute this method. You call up your sales rep, right? You don't send them the purchase orders yet. You call them up and you say, hey, Mr. Sales Rep, we're reviewing some of your products. I like what you guys have. In fact, I think we can do business together. So what I did is I put together 2 different purchase orders, right? I'm going to email them both over to you right now. Take a look and let me know which one you want to go with, right? And just to let you know, one of them is much bigger than the other, but that bigger one, we're going to need a little bit of help on pricing to make that work. If you can't make it work, no problem. You can go ahead and process purchase order 1, right? But if you can work with me, then let's talk about purchase order 2. Now, when you essentially put an order on their desk using that approach, their thought process, like they're thinking to themselves, like, okay, what do I need to do to get them the pricing they need to get this much larger order, right? Like they're literally going to walk down the hall to their manager and say, hey man, like we've got an order in hand. How do we get this guy 10% off? He's ready to buy. I literally have the order. We just got to help him out. So that, in my experience, has been a very effective approach. And it's a way of like you're asking for a discount, but you're not saying, hey man, can I get 10% off? You're saying like, hey, like if I can get this discount, here's your money, right? It's a completely different way to position it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, money talks, and so
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. Um, so I know what a lot of, and nobody's asked this yet, but I know that someone has this question. And maybe they're just looking to get into wholesale or something like that. But the first thing on everybody's mind, and one of the reasons people want to transition to wholesale or add wholesale in, is because it seems like an easier way to be able to scale the business, which it is. You can buy larger quantities, things like that, without necessarily having to grow a physical team or anything. Uh, so I'm curious, over the past 5 years, what are some of the biggest levers that you've been able to pull in your business that have allowed you to scale to where you're at now?
So I'd say the biggest thing and the most obvious thing is going to be access to capital, right? Because obviously, the more money you can spend on inventory, the more inventory you're going to be able to send to Amazon. The more inventory you send to Amazon, the more you're going to be able to sell. The more you sell, the more money you're going to make, right? So that's an obvious one. We talked about capital a little earlier and ways to source additional capital. Now, I think the second biggest lever that we've pulled to scale is delegating and outsourcing some of these lower level tasks, right? So at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, what moves the needle in a wholesale business is buying inventory. So if you can get all of just the low level administrative tasks off your plate that aren't buying inventory, the quicker you can do that, the more you're going to be able to focus your time on buying. And again, the more you can focus your time on buying, the more money you're going to make. So what does that look like tactically? So for example, for the longest time, I was the one managing my seller central account, right? If we got a negative feedback, I was the one going in and requesting removal. I was the one creating the inbound FBA shipment and sending the labels to my supplier if my supplier was going to be shipping straight to FBA. Or I was the one in inventory lab creating the shipping plan in the first place, right? None of that stuff moves the needle. Is it important? Yes, it's very important, but I don't need to be the one doing it. I need to be the one spending my money on inventory. So again, to summarize, the quicker you can outsource those tasks that don't move the needle, the quicker you're going to be able to scale. So again, capital and delegation are definitely the two biggest levers that we pulled to scale.
Nice. And so I kind of want to hit on a topic that I think scares a lot of people. And I don't know, it's outsourcing to someone overseas. It's becoming more and more okay, But I know
Mm-hmm.
that a long time ago, well, actually not even that long ago, a couple of years ago, people were worried about it. Are they going to steal from me? Am I going to, this and that? And the other thing was cost. A lot of people are worried. Well, it's going to cost me so much money. It's going to cost me a bunch of time. It is going to cost you some time to train up front. There's just no way around that. And whether they have no experience or they have experience already, you're going to train them in the way you want things done. Maybe you're going to break some bad habits that they already have. But one of the other things is I like to frame it in, let's say you're paying someone $6 an hour, okay? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good wage in parts of the Philippines, for example, where all of my team is from. Uh, $6 an hour, that's about $240 a week. Chances are, if you go out to dinner a couple of times a week, or I mean, it's a lot cheaper than a lot of people think.
Right.
It really is, especially when you can talk about being able to add 40 hours of labor to your business for really pennies, in my opinion.
Well, and to take that, and not to belabor the point, but to take that one step further. So let's say you're paying 240 a week to buy back, what would that be, 40 hours of your time,
Yeah,
essentially? So you just got back an entire work week worth of time. And let's just say, very conservatively speaking, that when you're sourcing wholesale products, you're making, and it should be a lot more than this, but let's say that you're profiting $100 an hour if you're spending that hour sourcing wholesale products. So you just paid $240 to get back a potential, what is that, $4,000 per week in profit potential based on your time. So that is kind of the trade-off that you got to look at, right? Don't look at how much is this going to cost me. Look at how much time is this going to get me back. so that I can then deploy that time into high leverage activities that make me more money.
Yeah. Oh, we got a big brain in the audience. Dylan Carter, the
Oh
co-founder of
yeah.
Aura, is here. Loving the content. I appreciate you watching, man.
Yeah, thanks,
So
man.
John is curious if everyone's on MAP, how can we stay competitive? And for those of you who don't know what MAP means, MAP is minimum advertised price. It's kind of the price that you have to stay at or above many times if you have signed a MAP agreement with a supplier, distributor, brand owner, etc.
Yeah, and people might be thinking, well, like, why would I agree to price at a certain point? Isn't that price fixing, for example? Well, not necessarily. So the reason that manufacturers have a minimum advertised pricing policy is they want to maintain the integrity of their brand, right? Because as many of you know, price wars on Amazon are common. So if let's just say a brand normally sells their product for $30 and then Amazon sellers are undercutting each other, and now somebody could buy that product on Amazon for say $18, then the brick and mortar stores that carry that brand can't compete. And so they stop ordering from the manufacturer and it ends up hurting the manufacturer. So that is why sorry guys, using my phone here. That is why they institute a minimum advertised pricing policy. So John is asking if everybody is at that MAP price, then how can you be competitive? So John, usually if everybody is truly following MAP, that buy box will rotate evenly among the sellers on that listing, right? So one of the issues with brands that have a MAP policy, but they have a lot of authorized sellers, is that we just know, like some sellers just don't play by the rules, right? They're going to break MAP, they're going to
Mhm.
undercut each other. But if the brand does a good job at policing MAP and enforcing it, then those are some of the best brands to work with because your margin's locked in, right? If you know the price that you're going to sell the product at, then you're confident in how much profit you're going to make.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a yeah. This is the reason that certain brands are just not on Amazon. Yeah, higher end brands just they want to make sure that their brand is not diluted because it can happen quick, and it's just the nature of marketplaces. We could be talking about Amazon, we could be talking about eBay, we could be talking about Walmart or any other marketplace. Prices tend to go down as supply goes up if demand stays flat. Uh, Leanna is curious, can you explain FBM at all?
Yeah, so FBM stands for fulfilled by merchant, right? So what the way I like to explain the difference, and again, some of you in this chat might know exactly what FBM is. They might think it's a little bit of a basic concept, but some people don't, right? So I like to explain FBM. Think of FBM as when you sell something on eBay, right? So when you're selling a product FBM or fulfilled by merchant, order comes into my Amazon seller account. I package that individual order and I send that order to my customer, right? Whereas with FBA, I'm doing all of my shipping up front. I'm sending all of my inventory to Amazon. Amazon's going to warehouse it for me. And then when a customer buys one of those products from me, Amazon is the one fulfilling that individual order to the customer, right? So that's the difference between FBM and FBA.
Yeah. Zachary is curious, do most of your suppliers prep your inventory for you when it's shipped out?
So a couple of our suppliers do offer prep services, right? So in that case, we will just we'll purchase the inventory from them. They'll charge an additional fee for prep, and then they'll ship it straight to Amazon, right? Now, many of them don't, right? Many of our suppliers don't offer prep services, but many of our suppliers are willing to ship our orders directly to Amazon. And so some of you might not realize that Amazon actually offers prep services. So many of our orders, like I said, we're buying directly from the supplier. Supplier is shipping our order straight to Amazon, and we're paying Amazon to prep our products for us.
Yeah, perfect. So Joe or Joe Mazan, he said the wholesale challenge is worth every penny. Could easily cost 3 times more. Trust me, I've paid more for less. Joe, really appreciate that.
Thank you,
The
Joe.
kind words, man. Yeah. Uh, so one person is curious, do you look at sales rank when it comes to searching for profitable ASINs? I'm gonna let you answer that piece first, and I'll ask the second part of the question.
Yeah, so I'm actually surprised nobody has asked me this sooner, right? Because I never talk about sales rank. I never bring it up. And now it's not irrelevant, right? Sales rank is important, but it's oftentimes very misleading, and let me tell you why. So in fact, there's an entire strategy that we've employed that we made a lot of money on, where we actually look for products that have a really poor sales rank. Now, let me explain, right? You might be thinking, well, why would you be looking for products that aren't selling well? So there's a couple of reasons. Sales rank can be misleading because let's say you find a product that has a 300,000 sales rank, right? But when I look closer, the reason that sales rank is so high, is so poor, is because the product is priced at, let's just say, a 200% ROI, right? Which is great. Like, who wouldn't want a 200% ROI? But what we found is that I can slash the price of that product and maybe make a 70% ROI, right? Which is still really good. And when I do that, when I bring the price of that product down to where I'm only making a 70% ROI, sales skyrocket, right? So instead of now being a 300,000 sales rank product, maybe that product is now consistently ranked 50K, 60K, or even 30 or 40K, right? So that's why sales rank can oftentimes be misleading. I'm more so looking, a metric that's more important is how much profit is this product going to make me per month? That is a more important metric because that factors in both your profit and the estimated number of sales.
Yeah, I love that. Sales rank, uh, sales velocity is incredibly important. However, I mean, there are just products that are priced way too high. I mean, there is a price that the market will bear on all products, and I don't. I think a lot of people are probably passing on things that looks like they don't sell. However, if they brought that price down, which I know everyone hates tanking, but in this case, you're not tanking. You're just fixing a mistake in the marketplace.
Right.
I think that's how it needs to be reframed. Uh, so they're also curious if you do that, what kind of tools or software are you utilizing to help you search for ASINs based on sales rank?
So the two best tools for that are going to be Keep a Product Finder. So if you're a Keep a subscriber, which everybody here should be, Keep a Product Finder is included. It's got a ton of filters you can use to filter on sales rank. You can filter on what, Chris, 100 plus different criteria within Keep a Product Finder, maybe even more. And
At
then
least. And then if you start mixing those together, I mean, it becomes thousands.
right. And then another really good tool that I like to use for my research is Smart Scout. Okay. And then if you guys, I won't go into super deep detail on Smart Scout, but if you guys want to know how I use Smart Scout to find products and use it to find products that sell well, then just on YouTube search Corey Ganem Smart Scout, or I think you can just search Smart Scout. I think like the first 2 or 3 videos are mine.
Perfect. Dylan is curious, what do you see as the number one or maybe even the top three challenges for wholesale based sellers going into 2024?
So that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. So the number one challenge for sellers in 2024 is, I think that they are not positioning themselves properly, right? Because this is probably not just, and this applies to new sellers and and experienced sellers, right? They have these limiting beliefs where before they even call the supplier, they might be thinking to themselves, oh, well, this supplier is not going to want to work with me, right? For a number of reasons. They might think that, oh, I need $50,000 in capital to spend with the supplier, which, by the way, is rarely the case. And also, again, they are just have the mindset that they're a burden to the supplier, when in reality, you're the customer, right? You have the power. You're the one spending the money. So they need to employ that mindset shift because at the end of the day, the supplier is the commodity. Most suppliers, if we're talking about distributors, like there's going to be multiple suppliers for the same brand, but in terms of customers, there's only a limited amount of customers, right? So if you've got money, you're serious and you know what you want, you need to position yourself properly and have confidence because the ones that don't are the ones that their businesses just aren't as consistent. So Dylan, there's a couple of different ways I could have taken that question. That's kind of just the first, I guess, response that popped into my mind.
Yeah.
But good question. And
Um,
guys, Dylan, just to plug a fantastic wholesale resource. So Dylan has like the OG Amazon Wholesale podcast. So I have my podcast is literally called the Amazon Wholesale Podcast, but his came what 4 years before me, maybe even 5 years. It's called Wholesale Made Easy. So guys, especially if you're on the newer side and you're getting into wholesale, listen to every single episode of Wholesale Made Easy by Dylan Carter. That is how I got started. Like I learned what I know, a lot of what I know from Dylan's podcast and from his content back in the day.
Yeah. And also a guy who has just an unreal amount of horsepower brain wise. It's insane. So Javier is curious. And Javier, you've been here several nights, so I appreciate that. And this is sort of a question we've touched on already, but Corey, I'll let you answer it anyway here. So with the distributor or wholesaler, do they offer free shipping? Can they prep and ship to Amazon directly? Kind of what are some things you do there?
So good question. And the answer is it depends, right? It will vary by supplier. So we have some suppliers that they don't offer free shipping for any amount, right? We just don't get free shipping. But those same suppliers might be, are in our case, are willing to ship our orders directly to Amazon. So it's always going to depend. And at the same time, we've got some suppliers that they offer free shipping for any orders over, let's say, $200, right? So, and if you're not sure, if you don't know if they offer prep or you don't know if they have a free shipping threshold, best thing to do is just ask.
Mhm. Now, I want to shift for a second. Of course, if you're watching or if you have watched anything, we'd love to have you in the wholesale challenge. I think that dollar for dollar, it is the best wholesale course that's out there. And Corey, if people join the wholesale challenge, what are they going to be learning, in the 7 days that they've got your full attention?
So, like I alluded to earlier, each day of the challenge is dedicated to a specific, what we like to call pillar of Amazon wholesale, right? So, we've got an entire day dedicated to finding suppliers, an entire day dedicated to contacting suppliers. And real quick, people might be thinking, why do we need to spend a whole day talking about contacting suppliers? It's not just about like what to say to them in an email or what to say on a phone call. It's how you position yourself to give yourself the best chances of landing that account, right? We've got an entire day dedicated to shipping and logistics, an entire day dedicated to sourcing products, and an entire day dedicated to learning how to leverage virtual talent to scale. So, like I said earlier, the challenge is it's a live training on the whole A to Z of Amazon wholesale, right? And it applies whether you're new, whether you're intermediate, whether you're advanced. There's going to be nuggets and gems of information that are going to apply to sellers of all skill levels. So again, I could go on about it for for days if you let me, because I really had a lot of fun the first time around. But you've got people like Joe Mazan, for example, here in the chat that have been successful wholesale challenge students in the past. I highly encourage you guys, if you're on the fence, talk to somebody that's taken it, because I promise you, their feedback will be positive.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you, one of the things that I really enjoyed out of the wholesale challenge, which I don't think I've seen anywhere else, is you actually shared some recordings of conversations with
Mm-hmm.
your suppliers.
Oh yeah,
And there's a
yeah.
there's a ton to learn from those kind of conversations. And even you were breaking down kind of, what, here's where I could have done better, where I kind of screwed up, where maybe I should have just shut up and
Mm-hmm.
listened rather than talk. And in my opinion, that's worth the price of admission all by itself.
I completely forgot about that. And I've got, I think, one or two like new conversations where there's one where I'm on the phone with a brand owner. It's well, I guess they're an 8-figure brand, and I'm negotiating an exclusive deal with him on the phone. It's like a 12 or 15-minute call. And so what we'll be doing on, I guess that's day 2 or day 3, contacting suppliers. I will play you guys that recording. And it's like I will be pausing at certain points to basically critique my own call, right? It's like, okay, this is what I said to the brand owner here. This is what I should have said, right? So it's almost like sales training, essentially. That's what we're doing. So
Hmm.
it'll help you become
Yeah.
a really good salesperson as well.
Yeah, incredibly important in my opinion, especially because I don't know, doing OA, doing retail arbitrage. In retail arbitrage, you do shake some hands and make some deals and things like that. But I mean, in wholesale, that's the bread and butter.
Hmm.
You are selling your business to suppliers. You're selling yourself to suppliers, and you do kind of need that sales training. And I think that's killer. So you need to get to dinner. I don't want you to be late. Guys, so thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday night for a little bit. Guys, we probably will do this maybe one more time before the wholesale challenge gets started on the 22nd. But if you're interested in joining, you want to go to the wholesalechallenge.com. There are not only the content that is incredible, 7 days of a live challenge. You're going to have community as well. Um, and you're going to be able to grow with other people. You're going to be able to create contacts. You're going to be able to create partnerships and ways to help each other, because that's obviously one of the most important things. And there's a guy, David, he actually says it the best. What Corey puts together is all steak, no sizzle. I love the Texas drawl that he puts on that. But it is great. There's also a ton of bonuses that we probably have not done justice to highlight. You're
I
going
feel
to
like
get
yeah,
things
we
like,
never even like talk about those, and that
yeah,
those
never even
themselves are
talk
great.
about those. You know, there's standard operating procedures that Corey uses in his own business. There is his VA playbook, his trade show playbook, and next week I've got some cool things coming as well. In my opinion, that we're going to bolt onto this that are going to make this even better. So make sure to go check out the wholesalechallenge.com. It's scrolling down below. It's in the QR code up to the left or right of the screen. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot a message to either one of us. Our DMs are open across all social media platforms, or you can shoot us emails as well. So, Corey, thanks so much for hanging out on a Friday night, man. I know you got dinner to go to, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Have a great night, everybody.